Hey guys, so as the title of the video suggests, today I'm going to be giving you my overview and opinions of the Honda S2000 versus the Honda Civic Type R FD2. I'm fortunate enough to own both, so we're going to head over, grab the S2000 first, and we'll start from there. Okay, so now that car is clean. So today I'm going to use the opportunity to show you both of the cars because both of them actually have their MOTs due today. So the S2000's actually been off the road for about 3 or 4 months almost, so I'd sorted it. I recently bought the Civic FD2, which you'll see a little bit later on, which in effect is to replace the S2000, which we'll get into a little bit as we're driving. But yeah, I was going to give you an overview and sort of give my opinion on the two cars. So we're going to start with S2000 first. That's due its MOT first this afternoon, so we'll jump in that, get started, and head over to Honda to get its MOT done. First thing I noticed with driving this car again is how low it feels. Now this car is actually on stock suspension because in Bristol it's basically one massive speed bump, so getting around anywhere with a lowered car is just a nightmare. So I decided to keep it on stock suspension because I actually think it's pretty firm as it is, and pretty low for that fact, but obviously you do get quite a lot of arch gap. So that's why I bought the lip kits, was to try and give it sort of a fake appearance of being low. So I do actually catch the lip on some speed bumps depending on the style of the speed bump. But driving this car is so easy. Like, it actually is as simple as driving a Honda Civic. Everything's just where you need it. It's comfortable. Hopefully you can hear me okay. The only performance mods that I've done to this car are a K&N intake, sorry, a K&N air filter in the standard box, but the standard box has been gutted. You probably, those of you in the know with S2000s, there's a mod called the LHT mod. There are a couple of guys based in Florida in the States, I believe. Go check out their channel, it's awesome. But yeah, they basically gut it out and block off a bit of an area of the airbox, which basically dampens the sound of the induction. And once it's warmed up a bit and we get on some open roads, I'll open her up and you can obviously hear it. And the other thing I've got is the stainless steel catback exhaust. On these, another common mod is to keep the standard exhaust system, and you do what they call the U. Oh, there you go, I'm used to driving a Japanese car, just put the wipers on instead of the indicators. Sorry, yeah, UK exhaust mod. You basically, the exhaust on a standard S2000 sort of goes into the exhaust, then loops back round and then back through itself. So you can bypass that to make it a little bit louder. I did sort of contemplate having that done, but it's actually interesting how few exhaust or garages would be willing to take on that work. I don't know what it is, maybe it's just not worth it for them, for the money, for the work. So it was difficult to even find anyone to try and do it. So I ended up just buying the new exhaust system, and also I did want some slightly bigger exhaust tips. I think the standard ones are just a little bit too small, so I did try and contact some garages to see if they would be willing to do bigger, like change the tips and do the mod, but it was very difficult, so I just ended up basically buying the exhaust system and doing that. So besides that, this car is basically stock. The only other thing I've done is obviously maintenance. So I've had all the fluids done as needed, including the diff and the gearbox a couple of years back. And then also the other thing on these is the TCT, or timing chain tensioner. So they're common to start to lose their effectiveness at keeping the chain tight on the engine, and you start to get a rattle. Again, another common thing you'll see on S2000 groups is people trying to diagnose that fault. So a common fix is to take your TCT out and either replace it with a Ballade Sports one or another manufacturer's, or you can take it apart and there's basically a worm gear in there that smoothens off, and you can sandblast that. So I've actually sandblasted this one in a proper sandblasting piece of kit, and mine, touch wood, has been absolutely fine since. I had like a slight rattle at one point, but like I say, that was eradicated by sandblasting the worm gear. It's been absolutely faultless since. The F20C engines in these are bomb-proof. I think they're so over-engineered. They really are an impressive engine. And also, just to clarify a bit of confusion between what we know as the AP1 and what some people will refer to as AP2. So in the UK, we get the AP1. But we do get then an AP1 facelift. So from about end of 2003, I think, 53 plate upwards, you get the facelift. So you get newer headlights, tail lights, and a different size and body styling. But in the States, they got the AP2, and the difference with that is they got an F22C engine. So it's 2.2 rather than the 2 litre we get. It does rev slightly lower, the 2.2. This revs all the way to 9,000. It's like a motorcycle engine. It's incredible. And I've revved this out a lot when I'm driving it Spirited, and I've never had a problem with it. This car has done 102,000 miles now, and it's as tight as a drum. Like, Honda really do know how to make engines, and as long as you're servicing them once a year or once every 6 months, depending on your mileage, like, they really will go forever. Like, they're so incredible, and they never give you any problems with engine management lights, etc., providing you're looking after them. I once did have a problem with the speedo. I noticed that whenever I would get in and try to change the volume on the right hand side, which is the sort of control for the driver, the speedo would like drop off, like go to zero. Really weird. So I actually found that to be an earthing issue. So someone, I think, had done some electrical work on this before, hadn't done up one of the earth points, done that up, absolutely fine since. So we're going to up to a dual carriageway now, so I'll hopefully be able to open her up and you'll be able to hear the induction and the exhaust. One thing I also say about this car is the gear selector. So obviously you've got the gearbox right here, it being rear wheel drive, and oh my god, the gear change, you hear people say it all the time whenever you see reviews on S2000s, how good the gear change is, like the best gear change in any car. It really is like a bolt action rifle, just feels so direct and connected. It really is an awesome bit of kit. I also got to break my neck trying to see when the lights turn green because I'm so tall. Well, so tall. So, MOT 1 of the day has been done and it passed with flying colours, fortunately. The guy who took the car off me was asking about it, and I explained to him, obviously the car's been set up for a fair few months. And he asked if I've been starting it regularly, and I think I probably started it once or twice last year when it was cold, and obviously it's still pretty cold now. So he had a concern that maybe the emissions wouldn't pass if I'd just been running it sat still, not driving it, to not let the catalytic converter warm up. So this still has the stock cat on it. It's just a catback system I have for an exhaust. Yeah, anyway, so he gave back to me and said obviously it passed just about, and he said that was to be expected because obviously it's been sat for so long. So he said probably the fact that I drove it here and gave it a little bit of a spirited drive, helped that. So yeah, all good. No advisories, clean through as I expected. These cars are all Hondas really, or most old Japanese cars have a reputation for, you know, rust and corrosion underneath. And you know, I've had past MOTs, they've checked it and had identified that some like tie rod ends and stuff needed doing. So they've all been done in the past, not, you know, a couple of year ago. And I've been really funny about rust on this, because obviously, you know, these cars are only going to go up in value. So the better you look after them, obviously the more valuable they're going to be. So last year when I came back from Canada and it was summer, you know, I took the bumper off, and the rear bumper that is, and got underneath and cleaned it right out, gave it a proper spruce up and undersealed it. And yeah, he just said then, like, it really shows how clean it is underneath this car. And like, that's to be expected, because I don't want this car to rust from beneath me. And I've seen other S2000s where, you know, you look under the wheel arches or behind the wheels, and you know, all the components are really rusty, just looks really, really old and not really in really bad shape, shall I say. So yeah, these are really, really clean, and he said that. So you know, good news that it's passed its MOT. The bad news is I have to announce that I'm actually looking to sell this car now. So obviously today's video is going to be me comparing this to the Civic FD2. So the FD2 is actually the car I've bought to replace this. It's just a bit more practical. You know, how did it come about? I've had this, like I said, for almost 3 years now. It's sort of been my weekend toy. I work from home, so I don't need a commuter. And then, you know, before COVID, I did actually buy a second car, which could fit, you know, 4 or 5 people in. And then it got to the point where I was like, oh, do you know what? I want a car that is, you know, sporty, but practical as well. So I started thinking maybe, you know, maybe Audi S3s or RS3s, but in my honest opinion, I don't trust German cars enough. But that's just my opinion. I know people probably own them and have no problem with it, and you know, a valid argument might be that it's just maybe I'm not willing to invest enough money to look after one. You might just say I can't afford one, and I'm not going to argue with that. Like, I personally don't want to pile a load of money into a German vehicle, or, you know, European vehicle, when I've had such good reliability with the Japanese. Like, it really has. Anyone asks me what my opinion is on what car they should buy, if they're not a car person, I say buy either a Honda Civic or a Toyota Corolla. Like, they're the two. You know, if you are a car person, you want something reliable, I'll say buy a Civic Type R, or, you know, an S2000 if you really want something a little bit more special. So yeah, so anyway, so the FD2 came about, and obviously we're going to jump in that in a moment. Came up for sale from a friend of mine, and you know, when he said it was up for sale, I was like, you know, that's really, really the perfect solution for me. 4 doors, you know, the Type R vision. It's Japanese import, so it's a bit special, and yeah, so I was like, oh, do you know what, sod it, I'm gonna buy it. And then, you know, I bought that late last year, just before Christmas. But I always looked at this S2000 and I was like, I can't sell it. Like, I love it too much. I've made it how I want it to be, and I do love the look of it. I really, really do. But I'm not made of money. I don't have a garage, so this lives at my parents' majority of the time. So if I want to drive it, I have to drive to theirs, then take it out, and, you know, I'll drive this A to B, where A and B are both my parents' house. I won't drive this and park it somewhere. I'm a typical petrol head. I worry about it wherever it is. And I just don't need it now. I say that the FD2 is kind of stolen my heart, and we'll talk more about that when we get in it. So yeah, sadly, I'm going to be looking to sell this. And, you know, I've given people shit on Facebook S2000 groups when people say they want to sell theirs, say, oh, don't do it, you'll regret it, like, you know, man up. And yeah, it was a bit hypocritical, because now I'm actually in the same position to get rid of it. But it just seems silly really, me having it sat there. I was thinking about just keeping it with my parents, because these are going to go up in value. I keep saying it, but they really are. Like, they're not going to lose their value as long as they're kept in one piece. They're unbelievable vehicles, but sadly, you know, I just feel really bad keeping it off the road. Someone will make great use of this, so I think it's just time to let it go. So yeah, just past the MOT, obviously was expecting that. Really great car, solid, and like I said, I really do love driving it. It's so raw in comparison to the FD2, which again, I'm probably going to keep saying as we get into that car in a moment. But yeah, I'm just going to head back to my parents now, grab the FD2, and then we're going to head back over to Honda and see how that one fares with its MOT. But yeah, I'll give you a bit more information on that car once we get in it. Okay, so dropping back the S2000, and now we're going to jump in the FD2 and we'll head over and get the MOT done on this one. Okay, so now you join me in the FD2. And the first thing I can comment on when getting into this car after driving the S2000 after so long is how much more refined this car feels. Everything just feels much tighter. Like, the S2000 is tight, but everything here just feels newer. Like, I guess there's less noise from the cab, from the engine into the cabin. Steering feels really good. So one point to make there is the S2000 has electric power steering, as where this has hydraulic. It's completely different. It does feel like much more connected. I think S2000 has a good feel because it's rear-wheel drive and you know, really good weight balance, where this just feels really direct with the hydraulic steering, something you sort of lose with electric power steering. I mentioned I had an EP3 back in 2014 to 2017, or sorry, 2013 to 2017, and that had electric power steering, and it did feel sort of disconnected. Also, a friend of mine had an EP3 as well, and stock they don't come with an LSD, and I've never driven a front wheel drive car with an LSD before, and when my friend upgraded his EP3 to have an LSD, the difference, it just feels completely different. Like, it feels so much more connected. You feel both wheels are pulling you so much more strongly than when you don't have an LSD. So this is the first car I've actually owned with an LSD, and as soon as I got in it, I was like, oh my god, it feels completely different. It feels so connected. Like, you plant it and it just pulls you. It gives you so much more confidence. I tracked the S2000 and I actually span it because I wasn't sort of aware of the, you know, characteristics of the vehicle being rear-wheel drive. They are tail happy, the S2000s, which is why a lot of people are unfortunate enough to crash them. As well with front-wheel drive cars, I know they feel a bit more predictable and controllable, and yeah, it just feels completely different. Like, it just feels so strong. I would probably say that this car actually, in fact, feels maybe faster than the S2000 in a strange way, and I think it might come down to torque. So this car just feels like a lot higher compression. Again, coming from a K20 back in an EP3, this just feels so much stronger. Now, you know, this generation car is from Japan. This is the equivalent of the FN2, which we got in Europe, which, you know, now seeing this is completely what we should have got, and I think this is probably why Honda started to sell the FK2 and FK8 certainly in a four-door sort of saloon setup. I saw a new FK8 at Honda, so what I'll do is I'll get a picture of this next to it when we get there, and the characteristics are very, very similar. But yeah, so the ownership of the FD2 came about, as I was explaining in the S2000, when a friend of mine was selling it, and I wanted something to basically replace a four-door saloon, or sorry, I had a Mercedes diesel coupe, which was comfortable for four people, and of course the S2000. I wanted something that was just the S2000 and the Mercedes in one, and I honestly think this is it. Like, it's got four doors, it can carry four people so comfortably. I mean, there's so much room in the back. The front seats are really, really comfortable. It really is a great all-rounder, and it's Honda, it's Japanese, it's super reliable. going back to the engines, this is a K20A, which came in, of course, the FD2 and the Integra DC5. So because it's from Japan, obviously they saved the best for themselves, and why the hell wouldn't you? Comes stock with 225 brake horsepower over the 201 brake horsepower I think you got in the FN2 in the UK. And yeah, it just feels really, really strong. Feels solid. So this car isn't stock. And I didn't do any of the mods to this. A friend of mine who I bought this off put some Öhlins coilovers on it, so it sits quite low. And actually another thing I noticed is you do feel that you sit quite low in this car. Obviously I know I've just jumped out of an S2000, but the seating position, you do feel quite low. I think in like the EP3 and I think maybe the FN2, you sort of feel like you're kind of driving a bread van. Bit of an insult, I know, but it definitely does feel different. Like this feels like you're actually sat in it. It feels a really good position. I put a short shifter in this, just a cheapy one off eBay, really easy, and it does make a big difference actually. It feels really good between the gear changes. And yeah, and I know I said the S2000 is, you know, as easy as to drive as a Civic, and of course this being a Civic, it is just so easy to live with. I poodle around at like 30 miles an hour most of the time in 6th gear. Like, the only reason I won't do that majority of the time is because I get a sort of a drone with the exhaust system that's got on here. So it's got an aftermarket exhaust on it, and I think if you drive around in 6th, you sort of get a drone. But 5th gear, doing 30 miles an hour is perfectly fine. You sit below 2,000 RPM, and it pulls really well. It does feel really, really strong. It's also got a HKS, I think it's called a Power Flow mushroom filter, and well, when I let this warm up a little bit and I open it up in a moment, you'll hear it, and it sounds insane. And I think partly that is to do with is the fact that the air intake, in theory, basically is about here in the dash, like very close, because it points so close into the I don't know what you call it, the bulkhead, I guess. It almost sounds like it's in the passenger seat. Quite nice that when you sort of poodle around it's not too loud, but as soon as you open up, you know, you get the VTEC lights on the dash, and it just absolutely screams. It's crazy. Let's do it from a 1st gear pull. And the LSD just gives you so much confidence. Like, I keep saying it, but I've never driven a car with an LSD, you know, front wheel drive LSD, and it's unbelievable. I was like, see why people upgrade to it. Yes, absolutely incredible. Like, I've fallen in love with this car. You know, it's a shame that the S2000 will be sold, but it just seems ridiculous to be keeping that and this when really the S2000 is not going to get used now at this point. So I think it's time to let that go, sadly, and move forward with this. I did have thoughts of maybe looking to finance the new FK8, but honestly, I mean, I've not driven FK8 yet, and my you know, my friends who have driven them say that, you know, I should, and that I'll basically want to sell this then and get one of those. But I just think this is such a cool car. You know, you don't see them everywhere. They really are rare. I mean, now what I'd say is absolutely ridiculous, of course, but in my eyes, this is a Lambo. Like, you don't see these every day, and I've seen a lot of people, you know, stop and take pictures of this car either because they haven't got a clue what it is, or they know what it is and they know that, you know, it is rare. But you know, the going prices for these at the moment, I think, are like £15,000, and I think that's worth it all day long. Like, the reliability, the performance, it's just, it really is like an all-in-one. Like, if you can, again, like I said about the S2000, get an opportunity to drive one, like, definitely do it. My friend who owned this before me had it for 4 years. I remember the first time he took me out in it, I was blown away. It just felt so strong. It still does. They are just such incredible cars, Hondas, especially the Type R range. But yeah, so I mean, obviously this is a comparison video of the two. You know, the S2000 is basically a go-kart. It's it's a toy. Just such a laugh. You know, everyone again, you know, looks at them and, they're real attention-grabbing cars. Certainly once I've also done little bits to it to make it a little bit more physically appealing to the eye. Visually appealing to the eye. Yeah, and you know, the FD2 is, you know, a comfortable saloon car. I mean, like I said, this has got Öhlins on it, suspension, and it's not really crashy. It's really comfortable. It's low, but it's not too low. Like the S2000, I said, it's not even lower, and it you know, hits speed bumps and stuff. This is low, but it still gets over them. It really is a great car, and I just, you know, I really hope I can do some long distance driving in it once you know, COVID clears off. You know, I'd love to take us to the Nürburgring, although I would be very, very nervous to do that, of course. It would just be awesome to see what this is like on track. I've heard great things. Again, my friend tracked this, I think, at Bedford. I don't really know what more to go on about it, really. You know, in comparison to S2000, you know, this is almost a family car. You know, I joke to people, if I was ever going to have kids one day, I would quite happily drive around in the back of this. And again, the guy I bought this off, he recently had a kid, and he'd been driving around with the kid in the back. And I think, you know, it's a really cool family car, because I know Honda gets a bad reputation. Everyone thinks they're just, you know, overpowered lawnmowers, but I think they say out of, you know, jet envy, really, because they're just so reliable. Like, you can beat on these engines and they'll just go all day long. Like, it's just, they're such incredible cars. Anyway, I can keep rambling on about how great I love Honda. You're not going to hear it from anyone else as much as you will from me, because I absolutely love the brand. But yeah, I'll check in with you after the MOT's done, and hopefully we've got good news. Hopefully we've got 2 out of 2 MOTs for the day. Okay, so MOT 2 of 2 done and passed, again with flying colours. So I guess this is sort of a summary, end of video, sum up. I guess really the sort of question is, you know, which do I prefer out of this and the S2000? It's difficult to say. Both have their place. Like, the S2000 is just fun for jumping in and hooning about. In a perfect world, this, but as I've already said, like, it just seems ridiculous me keeping both for that purpose, and only use the S2000 very rarely, and when I can jump in this and have just as much fun. And like I said, I actually like the way this handles, just feels so planted. Obviously that helps with the expensive coilovers it's got on it. Overall, I think I prefer this car. It's just a great all-rounder, and it sounds incredible. I'm just going to wrap up here, I guess. It's got a little bit dark here now. The second MOT was a little bit later on in the day, so just driving home. And yeah, any thoughts, you know, write them in the comments below. Any questions, reach out to me. I've got an Instagram page, S_2TU_000. Yeah, follow me on there, and any questions, let me know. Apart from that, keep on VTeching.